David Martinez opened his eyes to completely unfamiliar surroundings. A room he didn't recognize, filled with soft ambient light and the quiet, steady hum of medical equipment. His body felt strange, weak, profoundly disconnected from his control. A woman was sitting in a chair beside his bed. Thessarin, he recognized the distinctive long ears, with features that suggested she was perhaps in her 40s by human equivalent years. She was watching him with an expression that combined obvious relief, joy, and something that looked like carefully controlled hope. "You're awake," she said quietly, her voice thick with barely controlled emotion. "Thank the stars, you're finally awake." David tried to speak, but his throat was dry, his voice barely a rasp. She immediately provided water, helping him drink carefully. Where am I?" "You're home, you're safe. You've been unconscious for 15 years. The words didn't make any sense. 15 years, that was impossible. "I'm sorry," he managed. "I don't understand what's happening. Who are you?" The hope in her expression faltered noticeably, replaced by something that looked like pain carefully hidden behind practiced composure. "I'm Lissa, your wife. We've been married for 17 years, though you've been unconscious for the last 15 of them." David's mind was racing, trying desperately to process this information. Married, 15 years unconscious? None of this aligned with his last clear memory, which was, he tried to remember. What had he been doing? Where had he been? The memories were frustratingly fragmented, unclear, something about a mission, an accident, intense pain, then nothing. I don't remember any of that." Lissa took a deep breath, visibly steadying herself. "The doctors said this might happen. Memory loss from prolonged unconsciousness. They weren't sure if you'd wake at all, and if you did, whether you'd remember anything from before." "What happened to me exactly?" "You were on a deep space navigation mission. There was an accident. Your ship was caught in an unexpected gravitational anomaly. You were critically injured. They managed to get you to medical facilities in time, but you never regained consciousness. You've been in a coma for 15 years. David looked around the room again, trying desperately to find something familiar. "Nothing. And we're married?" "Yes, we met 18 years ago, married after knowing each other a year. You were a navigation specialist, I was a xenolinguist. We worked together on a cultural exchange mission. You proposed at a remote station while we were watching a binary sunset. We had 2 years together before the accident." She was speaking calmly, providing factual information, but he could see the intense emotion she was carefully controlling beneath the surface. "I don't remember any of that. I don't remember you." "I know. The doctors explained that the memories might return gradually over time, or they might not return at all. What matters right now is that you're awake and recovering." Over the following days, as David's physical strength slowly returned through careful rehabilitation, he tried to piece together his impossible situation. The medical staff confirmed everything Lissa had told him. He'd been in a deep coma for 15 years following severe trauma from a deep space accident. The fact that he'd woken at all was considered medically remarkable. Memory loss was completely expected given the circumstances. Lissa visited daily without fail. She didn't push, didn't demand recognition or emotional response. She just was there, talking to him, sharing stories about their life together, bringing things she hoped might trigger dormant memories. Photos of them together, he looked younger in these images, happier. A wedding ceremony at some station he didn't recognize. Images of them working together, laughing together, living a life he had absolutely no memory of. Personal items. A worn book she said he'd loved, a navigation tool he'd apparently used constantly, clothing that should be familiar but wasn't. She told him detailed stories about their life, how they'd met when they were assigned to the same cultural exchange mission, how he'd been remarkably patient with her extensive questions about human navigation techniques, how they'd talked for hours during long transit periods, how he'd proposed after knowing her only a year because, when you find someone who makes deep space feel like home, you don't wait. David listened to these stories like they were about someone else entirely, because in a very real sense he had no memory of being that person, making those choices, living that life. "Why did you wait?" he asked one day. 15 years is an incredibly long time to wait for someone who might never wake up. Lissa was quiet for a long moment. "Because you're my husband, because I made promises." Because hope is all we have sometimes, and I wasn't ready to let go of it. But 15 years of your life. I had my work, I had our friends, I had the life we'd built together, even if you weren't conscious in it. And I had hoped that you might wake up, that I might get to see you open your eyes again. That hope sustained me. What if I never remember? What if I'm not the person you married? Then we figure out who you are now and go from there. Memory or no memory, you're still here. That's what actually matters. Weeks passed. David's physical recovery progressed remarkably well. His memories remained frustratingly fragmented, but something strange began happening. Although he didn't remember specific events from his supposed past with Lissa, he found himself comfortable with her in ways he couldn't rationally explain. The way she brought him tea without asking how he took it, and it was exactly right. The way she read aloud during his therapy sessions, and he realized he knew which passages she'd emphasize before she reached them. The way she laughed at something, and he felt an echo of profound familiarity, like he'd heard that laugh 1,000 times before. Small moments that didn't constitute actual memory, but felt like something deeper than mere chance. One day, during a therapy session, something triggered a fragment. Lissa's voice calling his name with desperate urgency, the feeling of her hand gripping his during some moment of intense stress, her face close to his saying, "Stay with me, stay with me." It wasn't a complete memory, just a flash, but it was the first real fragment he'd experienced. "I think I remembered something," he told her that evening. "Not clearly, just a feeling. You were there and something was wrong and you were trying to keep me conscious." Lissa's eyes filled with tears. "The accident. You were conscious for a few minutes before you slipped into the coma. I was there with you. I kept telling you to stay with me. I heard you. Some part of me heard you." More fragments came over the following weeks. Not complete memories, but powerful flashes, her smile when he said something unexpected, the feeling of her hand in his. A conversation about whether binary stars could support habitable planets. The taste of a specific meal she'd made. None of it formed a complete narrative, but together they created a sense of familiarity, of connection to a past he couldn't consciously access but somehow still carried. "The doctors say the memories might never fully return," David said during one of their sessions. "That I might always have these fragments but never the complete picture. Is that acceptable to you? I don't know. I don't know if I can be the husband you remember when I don't remember being him. I don't need you to be exactly who you were. People change over 15 years even when they're conscious. I've changed. The universe has changed. What matters is whether you want to build something from where we are now. Do you still want that, with someone who doesn't remember marrying you? I want you. Memory or no memory, coma or no coma, I've wanted you for 17 years. That hasn't changed." 3 months after waking, David had recovered enough physically to be discharged from medical care. He faced a significant choice about what came next. Lissa had made it clear he was welcome to return to their home, to try rebuilding their life together. But she'd also made it equally clear he wasn't obligated. If he needed space, if he wanted to build a different life, she would understand. "I don't remember our marriage," David told her with complete honesty. "I don't remember loving you, though the fragments suggest I did. I don't remember the promises we made to each other. I know. But I do know that over these 3 months, you've been patient, kind, honest. You've shared our past without demanding I feel a certain way about it. You've given me space to figure out who I am now. And I've found that I'm comfortable with you in ways I can't fully explain. Where does that leave us? I'd like to try, not to recreate what we had. I can't do that when I don't remember it. But to build something new from where we are now, to see if the connection I feel, even without memory, is enough foundation to build on." Lissa smiled through tears. "That's enough. That's more than enough." They returned to the home they'd apparently shared, a modest living space filled with tangible evidence of a life together. Photos, books, furniture chosen jointly, a kitchen where they'd cooked together. David didn't remember any of it, but he didn't feel like a complete stranger either. It was like walking into a place that had been important to someone he used to be and trying to understand why. "I might never remember," he said. "I might always be someone who knows intellectually that we were married but doesn't have the emotional memories of that marriage. Then we build new memories. The old ones were precious, but these new ones, you choosing to stay, choosing to try, even without remembering, These might be even more valuable because they're chosen deliberately rather than inherited from a past you can't access. A year after waking, David had built a new life that incorporated fragments of his old one. He worked as a navigation consultant. Apparently, he'd retained the technical skills even if he'd lost the personal memories. Lissa continued her xenolinguistic work. They lived together, building a relationship that was simultaneously new and built on 17 years of history. Some memories had returned in fragments. Others remained completely absent. David had accepted he might never have the complete picture of who he'd been before. But he had the present. And in that present, he was married to someone who'd waited 15 years for him to wake up, who'd shared their past without demanding he feel a certain way about it, who'd given him the freedom to choose whether to stay. When people asked about their relationship, Lissa told the story simply. We were married for 2 years before an accident put him in a coma for 15 years. When he woke, he didn't remember me or our marriage. We had to rebuild from there. And David's version, I woke up after 15 years unconscious to find I was married to someone I didn't remember. She could have walked away, moved on with her life. Instead, she gave me the space to figure out who I am now and the option to choose whether to stay. I chose to stay. We're building something new from fragments of what we had before. I woke up. My alien wife said, "You've been asleep for 15 years, husband," became their story about how bonds